So, what if the anxiety that you've been carrying isn't a flaw, but a signal that something deeper is asking to be heard? In today's episode, we explore what happens when a woman finally decides to stop spinning and start living. For those of you that haven't met me yet, I'm Sally Arkell Bowles, founder of Sovereign Soul Mastery. I'm an intuitive business mentor and host of Limitless and Midlife podcast. I work with powerhouse women who've spent decades leading, achieving, and proving, only to meet midlife wondering, what now? And so this podcast is where we reclaim our energy, rewrite our rules, and rise into the next chapter unapologetically. And today, I am so excited because I'm joined by someone incredibly special. My client and friend, Megan Devito. And Megan is a former school teacher, a mom of four, an amazing swim coach who knows exactly what it feels like to be the one everyone counts on. For years, she carried the weight of everyone else's expectations until she couldn't anymore. After turning 50 and navigating the sudden loss of her father, Megan chose to stop hiding her anxiety and instead use it as a catalyst for change. Now she helps high achieving women break free from burnout, set boundaries that actually stick, and finally feel as calm on the inside as they appear on the outside. She's here to talk about our nervous system regulation, the real cost of overthinking, and how choosing yourself can change everything. So, if you've ever said, I'm fine, while your mind is racing, this conversation is for you. So let's dive in. Megan, I'm so excited to have you here today and to join us in sharing what you're all about and how you've been able to help so many women and men throughout your career. So, can you take us back to the beginning? And what was that life like before you made the leap from teaching school into going into coaching people on how to regulate their nervous system?
Yeah, I spent most of my life really, really anxious. And it's a funny thing when you look back and your whole life has like pockets of where you're like, oh, I remember exactly how anxious I was at this. But really, your entire life as a whole was amazing, like really, really good. But
Hmm.
just a really sensitive, like empath kid. So I kind of did all the things, right? I got married, I had four kids, I went to college, and I was wrecked most of the time. I mean, all of my, like, really exciting best moments have this, like, stabby spot in them where I was super anxious. And that just stuck with me for a really long time until I was almost 40. And I was teaching I was teaching part-time and raising my kids and coaching swim and doing all the things, and I was miserable, like, absolutely miserable. I took sabbaticals from teaching. I was really lucky to work in a small private school where we swapped out, like, if our kids had a program or they had something going on, we were able to be home with them. And so I would take time off just because I wanted to be with my kids or because I just was burned out. And I kept going back because teaching's secure. And if there's anything that anybody with an anxious brain or an anxious body knows, is like we love security. And it was secure. And I didn't like it at all. I was really good at it. And I hated every second of it. I was really
TikTok?
teacher. I mean, I was. I was a good teacher and I liked the kids. And I just was like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And so
Mhm.
in the process of this, I somewhere along the line, all of the timelines get mixed up in my head. I started to recover from an anxiety disorder, like a genuine diagnosed anxiety disorder. And I decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I don't know if
Mm.
it was just something that happens in your brain when you get to that phase of life, or you're like, nah, I'm done, or what it was. But I started finding a way out of teaching. And as I got my coaching certifications, I actually led myself out of an anxiety disorder at the same time. So those things really
Mhm.
crisscrossed. But there were a couple of things that led me to actually leaving the classroom for good. One was that I had to go sit like in my car at lunchtime to regroup and take naps
Um,
because I was so exhausted. I would cry before I had to go in to teach. And then I would go out at lunch and be like, okay, half day done. I I could make it through those last 2.5, 3 hours. The other one was just another school shooting in New York. And I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I went all in on my coaching and I never went back. It was the first time I never went back. And I even got a notification in my email inbox last week that my license is going to expire. And I'm like, did not. I'm like, no, I'm not going to renew that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah.
Sounded like it was amazing, but I bet you there was a lot of question marks in between of
Oh,
am I
yeah.
doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? But I love the fact that you basically listened to your mind and your body and said, this isn't what I'm wanting anymore. Because how many of us get stuck because of that security and that safety in the job that we're not necessarily really enjoying anymore, or we're so
Mhm.
anxious inside because it's not fulfilling us in our purpose, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of bravery, or you could call it craziness, one or the
Right? Yeah. Maybe both.
you actually made that shift, right? And you took that opportunity and said, yeah, I need to make a change or it's not going to work for me going forward.
Mhm.
So what signs did you notice about that anxiety that was running the show for you? And how did it feel to live in that constant state of pressure while you were still in the school system?
Mhm. I think that being in the school system was actually, other than the rigmarole that comes with teaching, with so many just like new laws that are changing, a completely different population of kids, especially teaching through the pandemic, and just seeing where kids were when I started and where they were and how different it was. And the expectation that I was going to just be giving out A's for free. And I was like, no, that's really not anything I'm ever going to do. Like it came down to me deciding that like I wasn't willing to want it more than them, which is funny because it's kind of a coaching application, isn't it? Where like you gotta want this. I'm gonna help you get it. Like I can guide you through it, but I'm not gonna give it to you for like I can't make you want it more than me. And I
Right.
felt like every single day I was wanting it more for my students than they wanted it for themselves. It was really frustrating because I could see these kids able to do these things and they just either wouldn't or couldn't or wherever they were. So I was frustrated in that and I was wanting so much more for myself. And um not necessarily that I think that as by the time I had left, like absolutely left
Mhm.
teaching, I'd been coaching for a little bit and I had noticed like, wait a second, I actually feel pretty good. And I don't think I could have left if I wasn't to a place where I actually was less anxious. And I think that that's um I was to a point where I was in active recovery, maybe didn't know a lot of it on and off during that, but I was at a point where I was like, no, I actually feel strong enough to be able to leave, as opposed to telling myself, I can't, it's too scary, I'm too nervous. What if, what if, what if,
Mhm.
what if? And I was like, yeah, what if, whatever, I'm out.
Yeah.
Um, and I never would have been able to do that in the past before that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key differentiators, right? Is when you get to that point where you actually understand that this is something that I don't want to tolerate anymore and I don't need
Mhm,
to. I can
mhm,
find something else that's going to give me more joy, more purpose, but
mhm,
also to be able to understand yourself and that there was a breaking point within there.
mhm,
What is that? Okay, no, I need to support other people in a way that's going to be more meaningful than what I've been going through. And the system changing was huge. It
mhm,
changed the whole dynamic of the schooling system.
mhm.
And so I really appreciate you sharing that piece.
Yeah.
So also in the last year, um, you turned, I'll say 50, is that's okay?
I did level 5.
So friggin' good. And off and also, I know you experienced a profound personal loss with your dad passing. So how
Mhm,
do these life events influence your perspective and your work today?
mhm. Yeah. I think that I always knew my dad was amazing. Don't make me cry. Um, and I started trying to figure out what he did that made him successful.
Mm,
And I think there was always a gap there where I went from being like his little girl,
yeah.
being like, oh, wait a minute. He's always been the guy who I thought knew everything in the world. And I didn't ever try and figure it out. he was just
Mhm.
a guy. I was like, "This is my dad. He'd, like, do anything in the whole world." I mean, he ran 15 insurance agencies and was the president of his, like, his this, like, insurance banking thing and did all this stuff, and he was super successful, and he came from, like, nothing and built this incredible business. And I never questioned his brilliance or how he did it. And I wish that I would have asked him so many more questions, but he didn't give answers, which was really annoying. Um, Never ever told me what to do, even if I asked him to tell me what to do. But I think that just looking at like coming out the other side of that and looking at the impact he had, not on my brothers and me and my mom or my kids or anybody like that, but on our community. And
Mhm.
the guy was like hopelessly devoted to my little tiny town that my mom and I have done nothing but complain about. And we've had a lot of guilt about that since he
Yep.
died. Like he loved it here. Like, he legitimately loved this place. And, I was asked to work in his old office,
Mhm.
and I was like, instant yes. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be surrounded by him in his like, literally in his desk chair." And so I was like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go in there every day. I'm just gonna cry, but that's gonna be okay. I'll do it." But I haven't cried, which has
Yep.
been really nice. I've gone in there and I've been able to start looking at, like, what would my dad do in this situation? And, for
God bless him.
me, it's funny, after never asking him, I'm getting the smirk in my head and I'm getting the like, "I don't know, what do you think?" And I'm like, again, like, never, you're never gonna give me any but I know what he would do. And
Yep.
it's very interesting just to be able to say, like, he would serve his community and he would be
Mhm.
out talking with people and he would be out connecting with them and not being shy about saying, "This is
Yeah.
how I can help you," and literally helping them. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think
Mm,
that's a beautiful part of what you've been experiencing in the last year, although it was such a tragic happening for you and your family, but to understand
mhm.
at a different level than you really did before.
Yeah,
And to be able to feel that
yeah.
energy around the people that loved and adored him in the community because of his
Mhm.
others, right? And knowing that that was a big
Yes.
and so,
Yeah.
I saw your
That's what it was all
transition
about.
throughout the time and understanding, wow, I'm gonna miss dad so much, but yet his memories are lingering so long and so powerfully within the community. And with what you're
Mhm.
able to
Mhm.
now work in one of his offices, which was really
Yeah.
important and
It was
fun,
so fun. Yeah.
and automatically you have a piece of him there. So I really enjoy that piece of what you've been able to experience. So now as we're going into midlife, which is basically who you're working with people that are from midlife.
Mm,
So many people midlife are still carrying everything, right?
mm, mhm,
Why
mhm.
do you think it's so hard for them to stick to and set boundaries in their life?
Yeah, it's that, well, it's what I've always done, or this is what I
Mhm.
was yeah, this is how I was taught to be a good girl.
Yeah.
You should be helpful, you should be kind, you should, should be giving, you should be all those things. Yeah, you should, and what about you? I
Mhm.
mean, and I'm not saying that from even a selfish standpoint. I'm not somebody that really leans into the word deserve. I think there's something about that feels. I mean, I know that everybody has a different definition of it, but sometimes it feels entitled to me. And I, but I challenge that a lot in the thought that like, but you do deserve to feel calm and you
Mhm.
do deserve to feel proud of yourself, and you do deserve to feel like you're able to step back and say what you want and what's important to you. And that I firmly believe that if you don't take care of yourself, that you're grouchy with your kids and your spouse, and then they suffer. And if you're not, if you're not able to give to yourself, you don't have anything to give to anybody else. But
Mhm.
when it feels really uncomfortable and when there's a really old part of you in there that's saying, that it comes out across in your grandmother's voice or your aunt's voice or someone else that says, "Oh, that's not what we do." Or people are going to think that you're being nasty
Mhm.
or that nice girls would do this, then that's threatening to who you are as a person. And when that comes out, you're going to feel anxious because you're going to have to do something uncomfortable that you've been told your entire life is bad.
Mhm.
And
Exactly. I think,
Yeah.
I've noticed that especially in the midlife stage of our lives that, not only are our careers and our relationships also evolving at that same pace, we get into a pattern, right? We get
Mm.
into a pattern of just doing and being, and we lose the love and attraction to our partner. We lose our identity in our job, thinking that's all there is. And, our children are starting to grow and get older and they don't need us as much. And so now, we start feeling like we're really lost in that midlife piece of it.
Mhm.
And so I know that you talk a lot about doing all the right things and still feeling overwhelmed. So what's
Mhm.
the myths about anxiety or overthinking that you love to bust?
Oh, people love to make anxiety their entire personality.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And me too, right? I mean, my entire backstory when I started coaching was like I was anxious from the time I was 8 years old. I had the anxiety attacks all through elementary school and middle school. It
Hmm.
was my entire personality. Like, and it's a funny thing when you start hearing other people say it, and you're like, oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
It's just something you feel sometimes. And because that feeling is so intense, and for people who are really in the middle of that place, where they're anxious about their job, they're anxious about their kids, they're anxious about how they're gonna retire, how they're gonna do all those things, it can feel really important to think about it all the time. And we
Mm.
assume because it's such a big feeling that it's taking up most of our days. But when we're able to step back and really look at, well, how long were you actually anxious today?
Yeah.
It's not all day, every day. I mean, you might feel anxious every day, but it might be 5 minutes, but it probably took over your brain for like, I'm afraid it'll come back. What if I was wrong? Should I think about that some more? It's always your brain going back to make sure that you don't
Mhm.
need to be anxious some more, or like, I was afraid of that. I don't ever want to feel it again. But the feeling itself isn't taking over your entire day. You just think it is.
Yeah. I think we end up owning it too, right? We
Oh,
own any of, you know, like saying that, "Oh, I'm an anxious person," or "I'm always feeling anxious."
yeah.
We own that as if it's part of us,
Mhm.
when it really isn't. And
Right.
releasing of that and reprogramming your identity so that you're not holding yourself out as that anxious person because we tend to label ourselves a lot
Mhm.
with the different, I'm ADHD or I'm this or I'm that. And I'm an anxious person. I've been that my whole life. And we
Right.
own it so strong. Whereas the only way to get rid of it is to start to evaporate and get rid of
Mhm.
ownership that you have for whatever it is that you're hanging on to. So what
Yeah.
shifts when a person stops living from others and starts creating space for themselves? So what shifts in that process when they start living differently?
Mhm. Yeah. The first thing I had this conversation with someone I'm coaching, oh, just last Thursday. We were on a call, and I said, "Wait, wait, wait, wait. The first thing I need you to do is to stop saying I am anxious. Like
Mhm.
anytime you say I am, you're kind of invoking the name of
Yes.
God or universe or anything and saying I am, and you immediately make it who you are. Like I was created as this little ball of anxiety. That's not true. You have to
Mhm.
say I feel. Like just stop it. Like I feel anxious is momentary. And it kind of
Mhm.
separates you from that whole term. And you're right. Like there are like again, I hate to keep going back to the pandemic because it was such a miserable time, but we all started self-diagnosing ourselves and our friend, everyone else.
Mhm.
Um, Everybody on this planet feels anxious at some point because you're human. And I think
Mhm.
just to be able to step back and look at it as something that you feel, the one thing I think that really helped me move out of that place where I felt anxious so often
Mhm.
was to be able to say, um, just to like say, wait a second, this is just a chemical reaction. All that's
Mhm.
happening right now is a chemical reaction that makes my brain kind of explode. And to be able to say, that's chemicals right now, and to kind of like shake those out and literally shake them out
Yeah.
and to say, that's what's happening. My brain feels I have a lot of hormones, and especially in midlife, especially when you get to
Mhm.
perimenopause and menopause, your body is going to throw a temper tantrum and you will feel anxious, and that's okay. Lots of hormones. Just remind yourself nothing's wrong. It just feels bad, and your brain's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think, I've witnessed many people throughout my career doing that same thing, right? And
Yeah.
coming up with, I've seen lots of people lock themselves in their offices all day
Yeah.
and so fearful to even come out to because
Mhm.
they're feeling like they're just, They are so anxious because they're not getting the results they want, or they're fearful about
Mhm.
making a phone call with somebody, whatever it might be. But in my leadership roles that I've had throughout the years, I've seen many people either not show up because they were self-employed. So that's a
Mhm.
good thing. They can not show up and say that they were doing
Mhm.
something, or they would lock themselves behind closed doors. And it our minds start taking over our bodies in a way that's so destructive for us and really does prevent us from moving forward. So, what shifts when a person starts living for others and starts creating space for themselves?
Yeah. It's amazing how many things we do out of feeling anxious. We have 0 tolerance for discomfort, and this I mean, we get mad when our TV doesn't load fast enough, and it has to go to outer space and back. We act like that's not a big thing, and I'm like, "You're literally trying to get something from outer space. Could you wait, like, 2 seconds?" But we're mad, it doesn't load fast enough, or we didn't get it right away, or all of, whatever it is that we think we have to do, and we're so busy trying to be somebody we saw on the internet, or to be better than somebody we saw on the internet, or to do these things without upsetting anybody that we see in our lives, that most of the ways that we behave are because we feel uncomfortable. And whether we call them anxiety or shame or whatever we want, a lot of times when I'm coaching someone, I'll say, "Can you just tell me what you feel?" And the
Mhm.
only thing they can say is bad. I feel
Yeah.
bad, like really bad. That feels bad to do that. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Bad? And when you start digging into it, so much of what we feel that's uncomfortable, we call it anxiety, and it's not anxiety at all. It
Mm.
is shame, it is fear, it is, guilt, it is all of these other emotions that we just like wad up into a ball and call anxiety. And when
Mm.
you start picking them apart, we can say, well, like, what if that's, what are you going to do about that feeling? Or what are you going to
Yeah.
do about this feeling over there? And so instead of automatically saying yes when you want to say no, they're like, "Well, if that person was mad at me, I wouldn't worry so much. I'm more worried about, like, what my mom would say about me." I'm like, "Well, what would your mom say if she said no?" "Well, she probably wouldn't care." "Okay, well, tell that person no." And then they're like, "Oh, that felt really good." And once they learn how to do that, how to say, "It's okay for you to say no to something that's not right for you, that might be perfect for somebody else that doesn't have the opportunity because you keep saying yes to things that you don't wanna do anyway."
Mm.
Or being able to say, "You know what? I don't think I have time in my schedule for this. I'm actually gonna turn down something that somebody told you in the past that nice girls would do that." No, it's okay. You can say no. So, by having those boundaries around your time and around your energy and around who you let into your life are
Mhm.
huge, because
Yeah.
when you have good vibes or good people around you, or you feel really, like, in line with what you're doing, you've got more patience with your kids and your spouse, and more ability to, like, think creatively and clearly. So you're not so stressed out about your job all the time. You can actually come up with good ideas and do
Mhm.
things that feel really uncomfortable, that move you forward, instead of being stuck in this place where, like, "Oh god, I just don't know what everybody's gonna say."
Mhm.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal, and I know that you have a opportunity for people called
Mhm.
your boundaries and balance audit. So, how does that help people get clarity on where their energy is leaking?
The most fun thing when I do this audit and we go through, I think it's 7 different areas of their life, is how many times they repeat the same thing over and over
Mm.
in every area of their life. So whether we're talking about how are you sleeping? How's your social life? How is it, like, are you cooking homemade food, or are you just like living out of a McDonald's bag? Or how do you feel about work? And it'll keep back to you. You don't understand. I don't have any time for any of that. I'm like, well,
Mm.
every single time you told me you didn't have time, what's taking all your time? Or they'll tell me, "Ugh, I don't know, I could never say that. I mean, I want to, but I couldn't tell them no." Or, "I would
Mm.
love to try that, but I could never say yes to that because I'm afraid that I'll mess up." So often, like, when the whole premise of it is, if you can figure out what you keep saying yes to or no to, or where you keep
Mhm.
just answering because you feel anxious, if you can fix that one area, everything it opens up space for everything else. So we're just constantly pulling out the areas that aren't working well. And I like to do it once a quarter with people, because your life is going to go back to off balance. I mean, we're human. Expect it. Expect to go off balance. But always know that you can always go back into balance. And that's really the plan, is to be able to say, this right here, this is the area of your life that needs a little bit of love and a little bit of intention.
Mhm.
And once you pull that out, you're going to have more time for all these other things, and you're going to be able to do it easier.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key elements is when you actually can catch yourself stepping into the old behavior or the old thought patterns or the old responses, then you can once you start catching yourself, you'll be able to reprogram it to be able to move forward to create a different outcome. And I think so many people are so conditioned. And I know you and I had talked about, Thanksgiving and Christmas and how conditioned we are
Hmm.
to have to show up in a certain way for certain people.
Hmm.
And yet we resent it,
Right.
right? We resent it or we feel so uncomfortable, or sometimes we don't even want to go to the event because we're made to feel a certain way around certain family members or friends or whoever it might be. And so it's really important for, I believe, with the audit that you've created, to be able to help people to actually see where those gaps are and what they can do now to move forward. So I think that it's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant audit that you created for people. And I know it's been so effective with so many people to
Hmm.
get clarity on where they're off track. So I think, it'll definitely be in our show notes. So make sure you click on that if you want to meet with Megan and go through one of the audits with her, because I think if you have any inkling that something's off, why not? Why not
And
go
I think,
and get some clarity?
yeah, and I think it's just so, I mean, for anyone who's listening who's like, but I know what I'm doing.
Mm.
Yes, you probably do. And remembering that most of the things that happen in our brains on a daily basis are tied to how light it is outside or what our morning routine is. So your thoughts are included in that. So if you notice that, like, I know it, it's just, it feels so important to keep doing it, it's because it's a habit. And if you can think of it as the same thing as trying to quit smoking or drinking, where like it's gonna feel hard because your
Mhm,
brain loves it. It's certainty. And coming from an anxiety perspective, when you break that certainty, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
mhm.
And it's like you have to have a new relationship with uncomfortable.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. We should take that quote. We'll catch that in the show note. Thank you. Oh, good one, right? It's
Yeah.
very that was a very simple one to be able to say, but yet so powerful.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the most common patterns you see in the high functioning people that you coach?
Oh, productivity. Man, we are good. We can get so much
Mhm.
done. Like, I say this from someone who is the most productive person that I get stuff done as a badge of honor. And it's not good, bad, right, or wrong
Yeah.
until I get to the point where I'm like, I can't get it done. And I notice that I get stressed. Like today, I've been really productive and
Mm,
I'm not stressed out because I learned how to shorten my list, which is nice. But I used to make the longest list I could make to see how much I could get done. And then I would get frustrated when I couldn't make everything done. Now I make a short list and I'm like, check, check, check. Look at that. I've got free time. I'm gonna add this one thing to it instead of trying to like make us do this list of
mm,
20 things. So I think that overdoing is one thing. Um, Constantly having to be on and not valuing rest. I just did a phone call this morning with someone and I was like, well, what would it be like to do productive rest? And they're like, I don't know what that means. And I said, well, if you're being productive while you rest, what is that? And they're like, I don't know. I thought that rest was like naps or watch Netflix. And I'm like, it could be. It could be napping and watching Netflix. I'm like, or it could be taking a walk. And they're like, "Whoa, you mean like working out?" And I was like, "Working out could actually be restful." Yes. Like if your brain is spinning out, if your body feels really anxious, one of the best things you can do is take a walk. And if you
mhm,
do that, you'll be less anxious. It was productive rest. Um, yeah, or journaling is productive rest, or being able like sometimes even like chopping vegetables is productive rest. It's like meditative.
yeah.
So those things I think that we're so prone to doing because we've had to for a long time. I raised 4 kids with a husband who worked like 70 hours a week. So I mean, I did a lot of that on my own while I was coaching swim and teaching. And so figuring out how to get as much done as I could was the way we got through. I was good at it, so that helped. Um, but yeah, we don't rest well. We want to be helpful, so we overextend ourselves and overschedule ourselves. And it's all in an effort to be everything for everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've taught for quite a few years is the get to versus the have to. And so
Mm, mhm.
oftentimes, I mean, I was writing down all the things I needed to do in the corporate world every day and having my list and that kind of stuff. And then eventually I just got to the point, of all this stuff, what are the things that I get to do versus have to do? Because when we say have to do, we're giving ourselves a command versus get to as a
Mhm.
choice. And at the end of the
Mhm.
day, what are the top three most important things that you need to get done so that you at least get those done well? And they're going to be the needle changers, right? They're going to be the ones that are going to
Yeah, I
move you
know.
forward most effectively as opposed to the have tos, which are like, "Oh my gosh, I got this big long list and now I'm overwhelmed. It's 9:30 in the morning and I can't even focus anymore."
Mhm.
And I saw that so many times. And
Well, you
so
did
I
with me. I mean, we've talked about it a million times. Like, I will be like, check out this list of things I'm going to do on social media. I hate everything about it. Oh, what a change. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to break. So,
It is a hard thing to break on it, but, if you think the have to versus the get to, because we do get choice in
mhm.
everything we do, whether it's communicating with people, whether it's doing your to-do list, whatever it might be. I always have changed it to the get to because then it gives me a softer feel than a
Mm,
have to.
mm,
Have to is like a command, like boom, do it or else. And so when you're doing those
mhm,
types of things for anything in your life, think about I get to go to work today. I'm
mhm.
lucky I have a job,
Yeah, that
right?
makes a huge
That's
difference.
yeah, just saying that to yourself on the way to work instead of like, it's gonna be a horrible day today. What am I gonna do? I'm not looking forward to the right. Just a simple shift in that can make a big difference. It's
Mhm.
kind of like we talked about earlier when we say I am and owning our identity versus what was the thing we were talking about earlier?
I feel, yeah,
There you
I,
go.
I am anxious. I feel anxious. You are not anxious.
Oh,
You are
a
human.
big difference just in that one single word changing, right?
Yeah.
And it's those little things when we start to use them regularly that we give ourselves a lot
Mhm.
more ease and a lot more in our day.
Mhm.
So now you are a busy lady. I know that for a
I'm a
fact.
busy lady.
You're running a business, you're losing your
Intentionally busy right now.
yeah,
Intentionally, yes.
you're teaching swim. Not teaching swim, you're coaching one
Mhm.
swim teams.
Yep.
You're working for your community now, um, and living what you teach. So how do you manage your own nervous system and stay anchored?
Oh, so good. Best worst advice. I mean, I honestly, the most annoying thing that anybody can ever tell anybody when they're anxious is to just breathe because everybody's breathing or you'd be dead. Um, and I really take time to make sure I'm exhaling. I was a swimmer when I was a kid too, so I can hold my breath for a really long time.
Mm,
So for people who tend to be more anxious, you probably hold your breath and don't realize it, or you breathe about that much when you need to breathe that much. Um, so we hold our breath, and the more you hold your breath, the more anxious you become, and you don't notice until your shoulders are up around your ears and you're about ready to cry. And I've noticed, and I've been practicing this so much since my dad died, is that like I have to force myself to exhale. And
mhm,
I've always been a like I'm an empath. If you cry, I cry, we both cry, and I'll just cry with you like crazy. And so I've had to be very intentional about exhaling so many times that I'm like,
mhm,
okay, wow, you mean wait, I don't have to cry when someone else cries? I finally figured out how to do that. I mean, it took me 50 years, but I was like, I can hold it back a little better than I could before. But I think really being intentional about taking time to notice your body. And honestly, if you're an anxious person, the last thing you want to do is feel your body. You're going to avoid it at all costs. You
mhm,
don't want to feel what it feels like when you breathe because a lot of people feel like they can't breathe when they're anxious. They don't want to feel their heart beating because they're afraid it's going to stop. They don't want to do anything that they want to solve for the feeling,
mhm,
and that's not the problem. The problem is not the feeling. That's actually like the best thing you can use as a notification, just like if you were going to text reminder on your phone. If you can use that as something that feels secure but really uncomfortable, and be like, oh, I know what that is. When I
Mhm.
feel that, I'm not allowed to believe anything that's happening up here. And that is the first rule of thumb I do with every single person I work with is like, when you feel anxious, and we
Mhm.
start by getting really granular on, could you draw me a picture of what that feeling looks like? Like make it a monster, just like that Inside Out movie. I'm like, draw it. And I will have, I mean, especially with younger kids, but even with like adults, I'm like, draw me a picture of it. Get some colors out, like color with your kids and draw a picture of it and then talk to it and figure out what it actually wants. But to be able to say, when you feel that, that is your sign that you're not allowed to believe anything that you think at all, even if it's something very practical.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to believe it until that feeling goes away. Then, if you still think it, then we can talk about it because that's when you can think rationally.
Mhm.
But when you feel that, everything that's going on in your head is to solve a problem, and most of those problems are pretend.
Yeah. To pretend.
Mhm.
Ooh, that's a big,
Pretend stuff. Yeah, we're just creating
pretending.
garbage to explain why we feel so bad. Like, how do I rescue you from this feeling?
Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
So now, what's one boundary you set recently that made a big difference?
Oh, Lord. I put boundaries on myself about like what I'm willing to do in my business, and that was from working with you. Um, because algorithms will convince us that we will fail. Social media will make us more anxious than anything else in the entire world. And I was super stressed, not necessarily anxious, just angry and
Mhm.
annoyed with social media. Um, I deleted it not because it was making me anxious, but because it was just annoying me. It was actually making me angry. So I took almost all of it off my phone, and decided to stop posting over and over and over again and stop creating so damn much content. I am a content creating machine and I am not a content creator. Like I didn't set out to be like the Instagram influencer, which is good because I would have failed at it miserably. Um, I yeah, I just stopped creating so much content.
Mhm.
And it's been really hard because I still feel very compelled to create that content. Because it feels necessary for the survival of my business. And since I am my business, it feels like certain death. And that's how quickly brains spiral down the tubes. Um,
Like certain death.
so
That's pretty that's
isn't it? No, it's like it's one of those things though. Your brain, I always describe the way like anxious brains, you have this caveman, and its only job is to prevent you from dying. And it
Mm,
acts like a middle school girl. Everything is drama. Everything is like I'm gonna die. And if you, I mean, it's little things like if I don't do that, my business won't survive. And then if my business doesn't survive, I won't be able to pay my bills. And then what will we do? We'll have to move to a homeless shelter. I mean, it's that fast. Like your brain will spiral that quickly even when it's not true, even when I know that's utter nonsense. But being able just to notice that, like, oh, I feel really compelled to do this. I feel really anxious about having to do this. So I'm not going to. And
yeah.
choosing to say, I feel anxious. So no. And it's doing the exact opposite of what your brain is telling you to do.
Mhm.
So I put a boundary around my business. That was a really long answer for a short
But
question.
it's good. It's good to hear the way that other people process, right? Because
Hmm.
a lot of us are out there thinking we're broken, thinking that
Yeah.
I'm the only one like this. And so when you're able to actually break it down on what your process is for how you do that and how we can ease
Hmm.
the spiral, that's what people need. Well, that's
Yeah.
great. So this has been an absolute pleasure. So
So
please make
fun.
sure that you go into the show notes and click on the boundaries and balance audit. And then also for myself, I have a special gift as well with Return to Her Manifesting Emotion. And it's a guided manifestation journal for women in midlife. And it's 5 days to really reclaim your clarity, your desire, and your power. So have a look at that. They'll both be linked in the show notes. And if there's anything that you have as far as comments for Megan or questions, just pop them into the chat because we want to make sure that we're able to answer some of your questions. This is a really important topic, and especially for those of us in midlife, because we're at a different stage. A lot of us where the kids are growing up, moving out, getting married, etc. And our whole life starts to change because the focus that we've had for so long has been being the mom, right? Being the wife, being the person that has a amazing career. And then all of a sudden things start to change and shift. And our parents have issues or are passing. and so on. And so it takes us in a whole different direction. And this is a time in the life that I've seen of most people at this midlife stage where they've achieved so much, but yet they're so lost as to what that next phase is
Mhm.
going to look like. And they start questioning their relationships, they start questioning their careers, they start questioning what's next, they start questioning retirement. And there's so many what ifs. And it can create so
Mhm.
much anxiety within the family. And as you've probably noticed as well, the divorce rates go up when the children leave home and that kind of thing. And there's a
Mhm.
way to regain that love and to regain that
Yeah.
relationship because we kind of lose ourselves in that midlife
Yeah.
area. So make sure that you're connecting with both Megan and myself. And please make sure you like. If you've liked this video today, make sure you like and follow because this is a weekly podcast that I do that really helps us with understanding the midlife changes that all of us go through and making it normal, right? We want to make this normalized so that we don't have to worry about what the future really can look like, but rather reach out to some people like Megan or myself if you're looking for guidance, but also to be able to know that there's lots of different opportunities out there to manage through it. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming, not at all. So thank you very much for joining us today on Limitless and Midlife, and we will see you next week. Thanks for coming, Megan.
Thank you for having me.